All right, Uncle Dave, we're going to get it started. All right.
Whenever you're ready, boss.
All right. Welcome to the first nephew and uncle basketball banter show. I am the nephew Ryan Woolley, joined by my uncle Dave Scholler. So, Uncle Dave,
Yes.
I thought we would just start. You just give a quick synopsis and summary of your basketball coaching career, where it started and where you are now, and then I'll give a quick summary of myself. All right. So, just take us back from
Sure.
the beginning until now in a quick nutshell.
1989 JV basketball, St. John the Baptist. First job working for the late, great, immortal Gus Alfieri. You know him well.
I do.
Working for his son Ron at St. John the Baptist.
R.I.P.
A lot
Gus,
of,
basketball legend.
yep, and probably still the best defensive coach I've ever seen in my life. Ron, all-time, very creative coach in my lifetime. And then I went to Stony Brook assistant coach for D3 and D2 for 4 years. Then down to Winthrop University, 2 years D1 assistant coach. Came back up to Hills East for 5 years as the head coach. Then over to St. Anthony's with Mike Ryan, where we'll be having a reunion on 05's 20-year championship team. Then after that, went to Kings Park for 8 years. Long Island Championship there. A lot of fun. And since then, I worked at Smithtown West. Watched my son play with the great Mike Agostino, still one of the best practice coaches I've ever seen in my life. And after that, since then, I've been at Eastport South Manor trying to straighten out the Sharks. Taking a little bit longer than I'd like, but we're still working at it.
All right, yeah. So you also you coached at Winthrop for a bit there. So you've done everything, right? You've coached high school
Division
basketball.
1, 2, and 3. Yep.
Yep. So you've seen every level. You coached your son Gordon Scholler,
Yep.
at the AU circuit level and everything,
Oh
and
yeah, everywhere.
travel team. So
I
you've
used to recruit the AU circuit when it was AU. Today it's pay AU. But yeah, I coached my son's AU so that way he would get some coaching. That was my fear.
right, right. And I just want to let everybody know this man here, my uncle, he's seen so much basketball, it's insane. I mean, seeing the when you were recruiting for I think it was Stony Brook, right? You saw the Gauchos play, you saw Lamar
Oh
Odom,
God, every night, every
Grady,
night.
Chris Herron. I remember you saying you saw
You
play
know,
all
Chris
guys
Herron used to
give you
come into the
everything.
Gaucho gym and drop 40
Right,
and
right.
piss on guys. Basically, that's how good he was.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
Tim
obviously,
Thomas, Felipe Lopez, Stephon Marbury was on one team.
right.
Ridiculous.
One of the favorite stories you told me is the one with Stephon Marbury throwing a 40-foot behind the back pass, and Dean Smith is in the. It was in
Yep.
Lincoln. You said the Lincoln gym, right?
No, it's Hunter College Gym in the city finals. We're trying to get Herb Lewis from a school in Staten Island. Basically, he was been a perfect D3, D2 player for us at Stony Brook. But I could only reason I could get into the game because it was a sellout was because I had Stony Brook gear on, and he threw a 40-foot transition, no look bounce pass in traffic. There's Tommy Amico was in the stands, Dean Smith, and of course Bobby Cremins. And obviously we weren't trying to get Steph at Stony Brook, but we did try to get Herb Lewis. We didn't get him, but Herb was a great player, but we didn't get him. You always remember the ones that got away. But yeah, Herb did not come to us. I believe he went to Clarion Division two school in Pennsylvania at the time.
Incredible, right? Yeah. No, there's some stories that I just want to let everybody know that views this video here and listens to it also that, some people that you've met, like Lou Carnesecca, who passed away recently, right?
Oh,
You went to a coaching clinic, you said, right in Smithtown, and where you
yep,
obviously you grew up, and you said a guy like him. I mean, he's essentially one of the godfathers of basketball, you could argue,
yep,
And you said I give you like a 3 hour lecture. You said, and then took time after the lecture to speak to you.
yep,
You said you were a young coach,
yep,
obviously at the time. Can you just
yep.
talk
It
about
was
that for a
August
minute?
8th.
Yep.
It was 1989, August 89. It's at the White Church in Smithtown there at the big intersection. And Lou gives that great class, and of course his driver is waiting for him. Because Lou at that time is already probably 70 years old.
He was
So
already
he's
old then.
waiting. Yeah, so he's talks to me for 2 hours how to get involved in coaching. He hooks me up with Ron and Gus.
Right.
He gives me a free pass to any practice he wants that I want to go see. So one day I go to one of their practices in the fall. Chris Mullen happens to be back that day. I guess the Warriors were on the East Coast.
Right.
And Chris Mullen did a shooting exercise after the practice for an hour where he missed 6 shots, went for an hour straight. And the 6 shots he missed went in and out, rimmed in and out. None of these are like air balls,
Right.
short misses.
Right.
Right there, I was like, well, I guess I'll never see a better shooting workout than that. That's when you know what a shooter is. That's why I love when people tell you they're a shooter.
Right.
When a shooter, you went full speed with a pro trainer for an hour, missed 6 shots.
Right. Right. I remember you were saying with the shots he missed too. You like
Yeah,
there's shots that should have went in.
Yeah, they went in and out like toilet bowl shots. And you walk away from that. I drove back home and I'm like, I know someday I'm going to remember this workout, but I'm a new coach, so I probably don't appreciate it as much as I should.
Right.
But I never saw another shooting workout like that.
No, it's incredible. I mean, again, not to blow too much smoke up my uncle's chimney, but I mean, he's been around some incredible basketball minds. I mean, you worked
Oh, it's
also
been great.
at
I've been lucky.
Morgan Wooten's camp. You worked at too. Another again
Oh,
basketball
it's the
legend.
best.
Just talk
Morgan
about
Wooten,
talk about Morgan Wooten's camp working at.
Morgan Wooten's camp, well, the late great Morgan Wooten and Jack Bruin used to run the camp for him. And this guy, Pat Smith, who was Morgan's assistant at the math, I think Morgan won 32 out of 35 DC area championships. And we're not talking about Class D basketball. We're talking,
High level honors.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So he just ran a first class camp. The best thing about him was one thing. If you sit down with him at the table at lunch, he'd ask you for your best out of bounds play, and you're thinking to yourself, "Wait a second, you're Morgan Wooten. What are you asking me for?"
Right.
But he wanted to know, so
Yeah,
he'd
you
be
want
like,
to pick the minds of everybody. Yeah.
yeah, he'd give you two salt shakers and a napkin and tell you to get it done.
Right.
But the thing about him was, every time you left a room with him, you'd say, "Why didn't I think of that?" All his stuff was so simple.
Right.
Just such a good person. His son Joe Wooten has gone on to do good things too as a coach. But just great people there. Joe Waltering hooked me up with down there, late Joe Waltering, JW, we used to call him Silver Fox. He hooked it up down there, and we got to go down there and work some great camps. And so Morgan Wooten was the best. I mean, you couldn't get a better deal than that. And Jack Bruin was the best. He was the Colgate coach at Donald Foyle, and unfortunately, Jack got sick at a young age, and it took his life from us. But what a great coach he was at Colgate. Took him to the NCAA tournament a couple of times, and you're just not going to get a better situation working at those camps. Just the experience you got as an assistant coach, great recruiting tool. Also, I mean, I got to just see so many great players because at Stony Brook at that time, we're starting to branch out to like we used to be traditionally a New York State, obviously player thing. But once you go in D2, we had to branch out. So the night I saw Nate James is how I wound up getting a job at Winthrop. So Nate James played at St. John's Prospect Hall, and I ran into the Winthrop assistants, and that's how I got that. So I owe Morgan Wooten for that too. So all those people, just great people, great access, really fortunate. Bernard Tomlin hooked me up with those guys, and Joe Waltering, all these great guys, really fortunate.
No, incredible. Yeah, no, definitely. I think that well, I mean, I remember you also telling me too, you said a lot of coaches that you've been well, maybe not a lot, but remember you also saying there's coaches that you've been around that they've kind of been close to the vest. They don't necessarily open up and give you, some good stuff
Sure,
like as far as pointers and things like that. So it's nice, to
sure.
hear, someone like Luke Carnesecca or Morgan Wooten
Oh
really
yeah.
have so much knowledge to be able to give back to,
You're supposed to give back. You're supposed to look at, I'm a teacher
absolutely.
also. I mean, you're
Yep.
supposed to look out for the next generation. It's funny. I have a 20-year-old being my JV guy right now. Everybody's like, he's too young. I'm like, no, he's not. He's one of my former players. I started when I was 21. What's the difference? A couple of
Right.
months.
Right.
So we got him in there. That's what he's supposed to do. Is supposed to help him. He wants to be a teacher and a coach. Well, we give him a shot, and they can be a teacher and a coach.
All right, yes, I think that's a good, point to end there with as far as your basketball life and story. It's still
Sorry for my
continuing.
frog voice, by the way. I'm a little under the weather here.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. No, this time of year, it seems like I said everybody's under the.
Playing hurt.
And as far as myself, I played basketball at St. Anthony's High School in Huntington, and then I played at Emerson College in Boston in the
Yes.
Newmark Conference. So
Billy Curley, my man, 1994, beat the
that's
damn
right.
Tar Heels.
Yeah,
Let's go, Coach Curley.
Boston
Watching that
College's
game at the
finest.
goddamn across from Hofstra University at I forget what restaurant I was at, but it was a great game. One of my favorite games of all time. Everybody's like, Carolina's going to repeat. Billy Curley toasted.
Yeah, we'll get into, when it's off season with college basketball and the NBA, we'll get up to maybe some big moments in basketball, that are our favorites, and I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
maybe one of yours as well. So
Oh,
we're
God,
going
yeah.
to get into this video that I shared with you, this Jim Laranagga video about him. Basically, he's a guy at this point in his career, let's be honest, he's on, to put it kindly, the back nine of his career. All right, he was going to be
Sure.
retiring probably sooner rather than later, but you could just tell, and I'm going to show the video.
I love the game and I love the university, but I'm exhausted. I've tried every which way to keep this going. And I know I'm going to be asked a lot of questions, but I want to answer them before I'm even asked. What shocked me beyond belief was after we made it to the Final Four, just 18 months ago, the very first time I met with the players, 8 of them decided they were going to put their name in the portal and leave. I said, don't you like it yet? No, I love it. I love Miami. It's great. but the opportunity to make money someplace else created a situation that you have to begin to ask yourself as a coach, what is this all about? And the answer is it's become professional.
So just wanted to get into, and he mentions in the video how, he went to the Final Four and you have 8 guys leaving for the transfer portal. So between the success of the program and also, let's be honest, you're in Miami. You're not in, the middle of nowhere or somewhere. You're in
Yeah,
a great
you're not
location.
in Lubbock, Texas.
Right, exactly. And not that there's anything wrong with Lubbock, Texas, but you're in, an exceptional area.
Been in Miami. There's nothing wrong with it.
So for 8 guys to be leaving on a successful team like that with the NIL, and he mentions the NIL, how guys basically, if they're going to get more money, they're going to leave. What do we think is the future of college basketball with this NIL? Where do you think this is heading?
Well, it's funny because I did a podcast on this about 2 years ago with my friend John Magrino. He works down at Deer Park High School in Florida, and he had the football and the basketball coach on. Both of them were dealing with that a lot at that high school level. And we talked about this then because that was when they took the cover off and said, we're going to let it go. And we were like, a circus is going to ensue. And here we are. But I think that you have to make some stern rules for the coaches as well as the players. I don't mind the NIL. I can live with that. But if you're going to transfer, you have to sit out some time. Same thing, unless of course your coach leaves. If your coach leaves, you should have the free reign to get out of there. But in the old days, if you had the transfer, you had to sit out a year. It's gotten too crazy. I mean, I love St. John's, my favorite Big East team. Love Coach Pitino, one of my favorite coaches of all time. But the fact that they have Seton Hall's best player from last year is a little disturbing to me. I know that's not how it started out. The kid went into the portal and he wanted to go to St. John's. It's not like St. John's exclusively reached out to him. I'm sure there's a little bit of contact, but the kid did, in researching that, the kid did do it on his own, but it is a little disturbing to me. That's in the conference. So, that's frustrating. But as a coach, it's hard because I understand the NIL. I really do. And if the kids want to get paid, they're going to get paid. But let's not act like some of them aren't really getting paid anyway. They've been getting paid for years. They've been around it forever. So I love when people tell me that. Jalen Rose told me he couldn't get a hamburger. He's, let's just be honest.
Yeah,
It's full of what it is. It's
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 ridiculous.
full of shit.
Also, Shabazz Napier at UConn, he said he went to bed hungry. It's totally
Yeah, Shabazz Napier never went to bed hungry. Trust me.
Yeah, right.
So, so even at the low D1 level, there's money changing hands. So the thing is, and this is 25, 30 years ago. So the thing is, I want the kids to get the NIL, but if we're going to transfer, you got to sit. Because if you have 8 kids come in after the first program's first Final Four ever,
Right.
and you're going to walk in there and talk about, not getting enough or yours or whatever, then what's the goal here? The goal is obviously was just stated that it's not winning. The goal is about money. And of course, we all like money. We all want money. Don't get me wrong. But if the devil came to me tonight and offered me more money and more wins, I'll take the wins. But then again, I'm twisted. That's why I'm coaching. But the bottom line is I would take the wins. But I guess the world is not set up that way anymore. It's something that we talk about every year. The first thing I say at the parent meeting every year, although nobody probably pays attention to it, is that we're living in a world that's increasingly more about me, and I'm trying to preach the we. And I'll tell you what, it gets harder every year. Everything's more about how it looks and how it is rather than trying to get it done together. It's very hard today.
I think what also is disturbing is the precedent that this is setting. You have 8 kids on a Final Four team. Not all 8 of those kids are not playing. I mean, you have, and Jim Laranagga, I think also his teams, he's had teams where he's played 9, 10 guys. You know what I mean? He's not.
Yeah, they play a fast tempo.
He's always had a deep team. So the fact that you have 8 kids, and again, 8 kids, you have a lot of those kids that are playing good minutes, leaving a team that went to the Final Four, I think is disturbing. Basically, what they're saying is, look, if you're not going to pay me what this other guy's paying me, then I'm out of here. And I think someone like him who's very old school, and he's been winning before these kids were even born, I think it's disturbing, I think, for someone that, like yourself, I think anybody, honestly, that values integrity of a sport, it's just, I think, a disturbing precedent that's being sent there.
It is because how are you supposed to build anything? So if you look at Coach Bennett, or if you coach Laranagga, like Coach Bennett's offense is intricate. Move a blocker is not just a phrase. It's an intricate offense. It takes time. It's all about cutting and timing and things of that nature. And all of a sudden, you're gonna have to get guys that can learn that in a short amount of time. Now, sure, you're allowed to practice all the time. In the summer these days, those rules are gone. But at the same time, it's hard to build. It's hard to get a sophomore and say, "Well, I got him back for 2 more years." You might not. You
Right.
might have him back for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
So
coaches, I think, stressed over kids leaving for the NBA if they were a really successful player. Now you have to worry about them leaving and going, in your
sure,
conference to another team. I mean, I think it's absolutely insane. He mentions in the video that it's exhausting. I think it's that too. When you recruited a kid to come, I think it was understood like, hey, this is unless something happens that it just doesn't work out, you transfer, but you have that
sure.
kid for 4 years, and you can develop them and everything. Now this year-to-year process where you don't know who's going to be on your team, I think when he's saying that's exhausting, I think he's alluding to that for sure. Is that this whole
Well,
thing where
not only that,
trying to keep your whole team? It's insane.
the whole process is exhausting. Brian, there's a D3 portal. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't want to start cursing like a truck driver. I can't do that. But
go ahead,
I mean,
let it out.
there's a D3 basketball portal.
Yeah,
So,
let's touch
let,
into that for a minute of how insane this has gotten with
so
this.
let me just explain to you how, I guess I'll say effing insane this is. My son's in college athletics, so I can't come on here and go crazy. But I just wanted to break this down for you for a second here. I think there's been two D3 players in the history of the league that have made it. Gary Grant did it.
I think
And I
Devin
think
George
there's,
did. Devin George,
yep.
I think. Yep.
And actually the kid Robinson, who's now a good player in the Heat. So first of all,
He started out
um,
D3. He started out
yeah,
D3, but
exactly.
right.
So here you have a situation where and more than half the kids that I was told last time I checked, it's been a while, that go into the D3 portal was still in there. So let me explain to you. You go into D3 for a reason. Doesn't mean you can't play basketball. No one has more respect for college
I
basketball than
know
I do.
you're talented if you play
But
at any level, right?
but the same thing is the most important reason you're there, especially at the D3 level, is to get a degree.
Right.
Newsflash, the NBA isn't calling.
No.
So like who is advising these kids?
Right.
Like what idiot goes, hey Billy, I think the coach at let's just pick a school at Hunter College is ripping you off here. I think you should be playing more. I think you should try to transfer to Duke. Well, again, I'm sure you're a wonderful player. Hunter College had some great players over the year.
Right.
Ralph Michelle, Sean McCartney, way back in the days we
There's
battled in
levels to
Stony
this
Brook.
though. There's levels to this though.
But I mean, good Lord, like what are you thinking? But then again, and I'm sure you know guys like this. There were guys on Gordon's team in Lebanon Valley who didn't go to school for a major. So you win for basketball? Like, are you making
Yeah.
money doing this?
No, it's
Like,
insane.
are you out of
Yeah.
your mind?
Yeah, it's totally
So,
crazy.
like, there's a D3 transfer portal. So, like, if you're a really top player in the D3 portal, great. But hey, God bless you. But, how many guys are really going to be noticed in the D3 portal? They're going to have to look your stats up on your school's website. That doesn't give them a feel. I mean, it's just look at your numbers doesn't give a feel. So, again, it's
What's crazy about the portal is at every level, D3, D2, D1, you have guys that it only would make sense to me to be a portal guy if you were a guy that thought, hey, I'm not playing as much. But there are guys that are killing it and they're like, I want out and they want to go somewhere else. To me,
sure.
that's perplexing. It's like if you're taking a lot of the shots, if you're getting a lot of minutes and you're still wanting to go out, what is going through your mind? I mean, truthfully.
Well, let's be honest, though. Was it 7 or 8 years ago? The point guard for Duke, who was a freshman's dad, transferred because he didn't get his son in enough pick and roll situations.
I know it's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, you're starting at Duke as a freshman point guard. And he said, I can't stay here because you're not getting my son involved in enough pick and roll situations. I just when I
And that
heard
was
that
when
that time,
Coach K was coaching. Yeah.
yeah, that's what Coach K is out there doing this. So it's just totally insane.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, no, I mean that's so, and also with the portal, I think coaches now more than ever, it's kind of shocking that you still have a guy like Rick Pitino in there, or even a guy like Jim Laranagga that lasted as long as he did. With now I think a coach you're hesitant to now coach a guy hard because if you do, this guy might just take off on you. And I think what we're setting is if this is going to be pro, kind of like a contract situation here. We cannot get to the point where guys are like we have now GMs actually now. You can't have it
Yes, we do.
this
Woj is a GM.
yeah, you can't have it get to this situation where guys you can trade a guy like mid-season. I mean, that would be absolute total insanity then. And I mean, then you're not even college basketball anymore. You might as well change it to something else then at that point.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
So I
So
mean,
I mean,
I
think
think
about Woj
what
left to be a GM, and I understand that, but it's his alma mater. But still,
right. What I think
you
has
need
to
GM.
happen is you have to have guys sign 2-year contracts. I think you have to be commit to at least being here for 2 seasons. I think that's how you reel this in. I believe. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be total insanity and depravity out there.
And I'll even let the guys have GMs. Because I think that way maybe the coaches like Laranagga and other guys can survive.
Right. Right.
That way they're not being burnt out by the stuff of not coaching. Because, they want to coach. Like, we're coaches. We want to coach. I don't
I
want
know
to.
this is football, but at North Carolina, Bill Belichick got that job. He got Michael Lombardi to be his general manager. So he's just going to focus on the coaching, and Lombardi's going to do all the transfer portal stuff and, recruit kids and everything like that. So, I mean, that's where we're heading. It's essentially going to be professional sports, just, with a college name and twist to
No
it.
doubt. No doubt. I mean, I don't blame guys for doing that. And if schools want to spend that kind of money, God bless them. I mean, that's not a bad gig. I always wouldn't mind being a GM of basketball myself. But then again, I recruited 17, 18-year-olds once. It was hard enough the first time. This must be murder.
Right.
There's no way. It must be just incredibly silly. Sorry, I had to plug into a charger. I was going to lose you there for a second.
Oh,
So,
no worries. Well, good thing you did before we did lose you. Okay, but I
yeah,
just wanted to just, give Coach Laranagga his flowers there. Guy who's been just a great coach and a winner. I mean, he been to two Final Fours. Let's be 2006. He goes to the Final Four with George Mason. There's not many
yeah,
coaches, I think, in the history of college
yep. And
basketball
that's
that
that's
could
the
have done that.
biggest one. That's the biggest one upset probably since UPenn in 1979.
Yeah, it's
So
incredible to
since
go to the
79,
Final Four with
06,
George Mason. Unbelievable. And
yeah,
that was where,
79,
and that was the
06
time
is,
that was harder to do that because you had less guys leaving.
oh
Obviously you
God, yeah.
still had guys leaving, but typically guys might have stayed for a season or two. Now you have guys that aren't even successful college players booking it after a season. It's incredible.
Especially that UConn team was so talented too that they beat. They were so big and so physical, and yet he had the undersized post player who kept posting up on that left block. I never forget that game. I had never missed a March Madness game anywhere, and my favorite time of year. And that was such a well executed game. But UConn was so physically superior. It wasn't a great UConn team that year, but they just you just kept waiting for that run, and Laranagga controlled the pace of the game with his offense.
Yeah, just incredible. And I just, his other accolades, he was college coach of the year in 2013, Naismith
Yep,
college coach of the year, ACC coach of the year in 2013, 2016.
there's some heavy
AAA
hitters in
coach
the
of the year.
ACC.
Yeah, 99 and 2011, and MAC coach of the year in 97. So a guy that will certainly be missed in college basketball. And I know me and you, we enjoyed watching his teams. I mean, the guy just won everywhere he went. So I thought,
Yeah, and
good.
it's scary because like you said, Miami is not a tough place to like. If you've never been on that campus, it's beautiful. It's got palm trees for a reason.
No, it's
But
incredible. Yeah.
it's you know what it is. I think maybe it's not harder for the younger coaches in respect because they didn't grow up with it. It's like a person my age not being needing as their phone as much as an 18-year-old. But then again, I didn't have it my whole life.
Right, right.
So like as a coach, without ever having to deal with this, now you do it. It changed it. So if you're growing up in this system, maybe it's just easier for you. But for me, it's like, holy crap, I just can't get over the fact that now we're just, we're paying kids and we're transferring whenever we want. And it's just, we have 35 COVID years and stuff like that. So it's a little frustrating.
No, it's certainly, yeah, it is incredible. But yeah, I just thought it would be good to talk about Coach Larinaga there with, he
Sure.
won. And let's be honest, Uncle Dave, he wasn't getting, you have to go up against UNC, Duke,
Yep. In
and,
Virginia.
and he's not having the top recruits at any of the places that he
No,
was at. So you have
no.
to win with second and third tier guys, that, were not essentially recruited by those top programs. So for him to have that winning percentage there is just incredible. Like I said, 7-16 and 43. So
But this
Coach
goes to show
Larinaga, great career.
when 8 kids want to leave, it shows you that they're hearing voices somewhere else.
No, it's incredible. And
Someone else saying, hey, screw him, get yours.
right, right. We talked about it. You're on a Final Four team and you're in Miami. So to leave in
Yep.
those circumstances, it's just
Yeah,
really a head scratcher right there. But like you said, someone's got your ear if you're leaving that situation.
sure.
So because there's a lot of guys, you're even a role player, but you're going to the Final Four. You might think, okay, I could be the man somewhere else, but if we have a 500 record and we're not going anywhere, I'm not going to trade the
No,
experience I'm having here. So
no, I'm
with
not
that
going to
alone,
Iowa State. I'm not leaving Miami for Iowa State.
right, right. And the odds are that those 8 guys leaving, you're probably going to get your head kicked in wherever you're going. So
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not giving up Miami.
right. All right, Uncle Dave. Well, so we're going to transfer to our second topic here. I sent you also another video
Sure.
about Richard Jefferson talking about the All-Star game format and how
Yep.
basically,
RJ. I remember RJ very well. Yep.
yeah, fantastic player at Arizona and had a really good NBA career.
Yep. It's
But
glad to beat him in the NCAA championship game in '01. That was one of my faves.
yes,
Mike
with Duke.
Dunleavy. Mike Dunleavy hit 5 threes. It was great.
Yes, so just my mother went to Duke, and so I grew up a Duke basketball fan, and my uncle obviously, my mother, his sister, when she went to Duke, right, you just dove headfirst into Duke
Oh
basketball.
yeah. Diehard Blue Devil fan since.
But so Richard Jefferson in this video, we're going to show it now.
The 25 people look at each other and say, we're going to go do it. Now, some of the last people, the guys that were super intense, who were their OGs? They came up in an OG period in the 90s. So those guys carried the intensity. As those guys have started to fall off, then nobody else has picked up the intensity. And that's what the All-Star game used to be about. There was never a time to see all of these players competing to see who was going to be the best of the best.
They think it's not cool to try hard.
But that's weird because those are the hardest working, most talented players on the planet. If the OGs don't want to play, okay, cool. We gonna end it with the young guys and we expect you to go hard. If this is your first, second, or third All-Star game, you are going to end this game and we expect you to go hard.
I like that.
Nothing that we say, nothing that the NBA implements until the 20 guys that are sitting right there give a fuck. And they don't. All right, can we get back to this?
Talks about how just the All-Star game just has lost its allure. The ratings are down in the NBA. It's kind of really a situation that's, where do you go from here? You have guys like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron that are aging out of the game. You figure in 5 years, all those guys are going to be gone. If the ratings are down now, where is this game heading in the product and everything? So
good question. Great question.
And we're going to get into this new All-Star game format as well. But we'll first talk about
It's funny. I read it.
This All-Star game format is absolutely absurd. I think it's going to make the league even look more of like a circus. I mean, this whole NBA Cup thing, I think, is totally ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
The courts are painted blood red or blue, like it looks like an ocean or it looks like hell in there. It's just insane looking. I think these gimmicks, honestly,
You gotta get guys to play harder.
yeah, it makes it, I think it really makes it look more insane and ridiculous, I think.
You have to pay them in the middle of the year to play harder.
The reason we're gonna talk about this. The ratings I think are down is
Hey, newsflash. Kawhi Leonard's coming.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. But you have guys that are playing every other night, not playing as hard. It's a 3-point shooting contest. You have teams that are taking 63s a night. They're making 15 of them. That's why the product's down. And we're also
LA Fitness.
Yeah, so it's LA Fitness ball. So just, start with you, Uncle Dave, your opinion on the All-Star game, why it's just the last few years, it's absolutely been unwatchable. I mean, truly been unwatchable. I watched the other day the 2001 All-Star game. I watched clips from it. These guys are playing harder in that All-Star game than guys are playing in regular season games. In that 2001 All-Star game, You got guys like Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. Just an incredible product for an All-Star game there. And it was must-watch TV to see the NBA's greatest play one night. And now we can't, regular season or not, All-Star game, doesn't matter. It's just, we're on this show, we're not going to be talking about NBA regular season basketball. We're going to be talking about once it gets to the playoffs, but I don't really see us talking about regular season basketball games. So
there's a couple of guys I really follow and a couple of teams I really follow and I keep in touch with the standings.
We'll follow the general interest kind of stories, but why do you think the NBA, we've touched on it a little bit already, is suffering from really a ratings crisis?
Well, they have a tanking problem. Not only a tanking problem, but they have obviously a load management problem is the biggest thing. If you remember about 7 or 8 years ago, actually maybe about 10 years ago when Curry's on that incredible 2 or 3 year run there, the Saturday night games always had the Warriors on there. But then people started wrestling guys in those Saturday night games. They lost that package. You don't see the Saturday night ABC game anymore on the NBA. And one of the reasons is they started to lose the guys. Like you don't know which guy's playing that night. And that's, everybody's favorite who I don't like. Everybody's going to be like, oh, Pop created that. Yeah, great, Pop. Good job. So, the thing is, guys, people can't tune in and be guaranteed of who they're going to see. Plus, like I said, there is a little bit of a tanking problem. Now it's, I love when you hear a guy out with an ankle for 2 weeks. You get a high school player turns an ankle. He's not out for 2 weeks. Here's a kid with primitive means, busting his ass to come back. And this kid doesn't have a future in it. This kid doesn't have a $1 million contract at the end of it. So what's the difference? If this kid had $1 million at the end of it, you might tell him to take that time. But since they don't, what's the excuse that they don't? Because they actually care about it. And so, I had guys play with high ankle sprains, should have been back in 4 weeks, come back in a week and a half.
Right.
Because it meant something to him. And I just question when you flood a player, you take a 19-year-old who plays a year of college and you draft him high with really nothing to produce. Look at Ben Simmons, for example. Didn't even win in college. You give this kid all this freaking money in the world. Doesn't have to work at anything anymore. Think about it. If you want to sit here 1 week, we got to dedicate time to this and talk about, I could just name you guy after guy. We could talk about top 10 picks who were out of the league after 3 years. But it doesn't matter. They made $30-40 million. They're done. Where's the emphasis to work? So guys don't play a lot. The All-Star game problem, I think, is a subtle one that Major League Baseball suffers from also, in that we started to have all these. Well, in the NBA back in the day, you play an out of conference team twice. I'm not sure exactly how many times they play each other now, but in Major League Baseball, for example, you never played an out of conference team ever. But then interleague play came. Interleague play every day, so that's kind of ruined the All Star game. The internet has ruined it all in town. So when I grew up, yeah, I got the Knicks were on TV or the Nets were on TV until the mid '80s. Nobody else was on TV. So if I wanted to see, the Bucks when they come in, if I want to see the natural progression of technologies hurt the All Star game a little bit, but also the NBA ratings problem. It's just that load management. And I hate to say it, Wemby, and this is I hate to go crazy here, but this is why I love arguing with the young basketball fan. It's just so easy to shred them. I reel them on the boat in class, and I fillet them like a goddamn fish. So I got one about a week before Christmas comes. I always these guys always go, oh, Durant's better than Bird. Oh, why is Durant better than Bird? So they give you some fucking, excuse my French, some 3-point number. It's like, all right, good. So who's got more 3 pointers in their games, Yama or Steph Curry? So they go, Steph Curry. All right, who's the better shooter, Steph Curry or Wembanyama? Steph Curry. Wembanyama's got more threes in his first 100 games than Steph Curry. You know that?
Yeah, it's
So
incredible.
does that mean he's a better shooter than Steph Curry because he has more 3-pointers? Or is that just because the way the game is played now? They think that do you actually think that because Steph Curry has less threes than Wembanyama, he's not as good a shooter? I mean, so they don't understand that. So then you fillet the younger fan because they don't understand the totality of the lack of meaning of the stat. It's like when people go, oh, how could you say Ben Wallace was a great player? Well, in 10 years, when Draymond averages 8 points a game for his career, and some kid who's 5 years old goes, who the hell's Draymond Green? He only averaged 8 points a game. He wasn't a Hall of Famer. You have to have perspective and know who the hell Draymond is,
Yeah, no, I mean
So,
we
it's one of those
talked about it
situations where
with the eye test. You have to
roasting the
be able to
fan has
watch.
been kind of fun because they just take the hook and the bait.
Yeah, I think also a point that I've heard that I think with the
You have to have
NBA.
seen a guy play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jason Whitlock on his show brought this up, and I thought it was a really excellent point that it used to be that the college product, guys staying for multiple years, you got invested in a player, in a program, and you knew who that player was before he even entered the NBA. There's lots of guys now that are drafted and you don't know their portfolio or they have no body of work. It's like Tim
Yeah,
Duncan when he was drafted by San Antonio. You knew who Tim Duncan was. You watched him play for 4 years. So you
yeah, yeah,
already were a fan of Wake Forest. You were a fan of Tim Duncan and you knew
yeah.
already. Guys that were and that made the NBA product better because guys were coming into the league and were getting drafted that were ready to be drafted. I
Grant
think
Hill, same
yeah,
thing.
I think what wound up really when I was noticing it, guys were leaving for the NBA that it was just insane. Like Jeff Teague's brother, Marcus Teague, he gets drafted. He wasn't even a good college player at Kentucky.
Johnny Flynn.
Johnny Flynn, like you said, he had a good month at Syracuse. Guys were
Yep,
leaving for the NBA if they had a good, like you said, a good week, a good month around tournament time.
yep.
And it's just, I think it hurt the college product, it hurt the NBA product. So I think it's kind of where we're at now is a byproduct of just, it's at least close to 20 years of that now, I think
Well,
also.
also look at the average age of the NBA player. It's so much younger than it used to be, which again shows you they're not physically as developed. So the league is actually hoop, especially on the defensive end. Plus, you don't feel allowed to carry the ball. You can walk with it. You can do whatever you want with it.
No, it's true.
The
Kobe
other thing
Bryant in
is,
the
you can,
I don't know if you remember in the Last Dance, Kobe Bryant, he had a segment in there. He said when he entered the league, he really struggled. He said because the NBA was, like you said, it was older. It was in men were in
yeah,
there. So you had guys
yeah,
that were playing D, it was more physical. You look at Kobe, his first few years, he's averaging like 10 points. He
yeah,
wasn't what he wound up being. He wasn't a guy who was killing it immediately. So
right.
it took
Well,
time
don't
for
forget,
guys.
03, they take away the hand check, and then the
Right,
rest goes to hell.
right. And I think also you had a few guys that left for high school that were freaks, and every guy thought, you know what, maybe I can do that after, high school
KG.
or college. Yeah. You had guys like, yeah, Tracy McGrady did it and Kevin Garnett, but those were guys like, I think you would agree, those were exceptional exceptions right there. That was
Yeah,
not, those were guys that were test tube subjects there.
sure, sure. Those guys are like just amazing specimens of life.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the league is just, I just think they really have a ratings problem because, like I said, there's just too much load management. I also just think that there's too much bad basketball. Like I said, how can Wembanyama have more threes? It's just a product of the game. Doesn't mean he's a better shooter. But to argue with the young fan, they give you some stupid quote, and
Right.
they go, "Oh, he's better." I go, "No, he's not better." I
Right.
said, "So you're telling me Wembanyama is a better shooter than Steph Curry?" They're like, no. I'm like, well, he's got more threes. So now I'm using all their arguments of the last 15 years back against them, and it is just hysterical to watch them twitch. Because now their guys are Durant and Curry, and I'll just go, oh, the younger guys are better. You guys all said it yourself. It's like, Wembanyama's better than Curry, better shooter. And they go, no, he isn't. I go, all right, sorry, got more threes.
I think also
You can't have it both ways.
Isaiah Thomas, he was on Mark Jackson has a show, and Isaiah Thomas was on it. And he talked about Isaiah, how, and obviously Isaiah is one of the all-time greats, Isaiah
Oh my
Thomas.
goodness, yep.
And he talked about how even guys who played the same position, there was diversity of play. So he mentions himself, Muggsy Bogues, and Mark Jackson, all guys
Yep.
that were really successful, but played differently, even as point guards.
Oh
Now
God, yeah.
you have, and I think it was on the Knuckleheads podcast with Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson, and
Those are some knuckleheads.
they talked about how guys now 1 through 5 they're playing the same way. It's like insane. They train the same way. You look at guys' workout videos; they're all doing the exact same thing. And Isaiah's quote, I was like, wow, he's right. Guys all, were playing the same position, but all had a unique flavor to themselves. So I think also it's just lack of diversity, I think, with the style of play, I think now. Guys all play the same way.
Yep.
And Mark Jackson talked about it, how Steph Curry he thinks was going to hurt the game. And I remember that was like kind of like a very eye-opening, controversial statement. But I think he's
That's right.
vindicated now because you have, the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson era. Every team tried to duplicate that because I think they saw the success the Warriors were having and they saw how much the fans loved it. But it's like you
Two of the
realize
best
that
three shooters of all time. You don't have that.
exactly. It's just totally insane how the league they saw that one thing right there and they thought, hey, we're going to be able to duplicate that. It's not a word, but it's not duplicatable. You can't do that
Yeah,
again.
that there's a reason you're open.
Right, exactly. It's just
I mean, like,
and even
it's
let's
just
be honest, even if you're a great shooter, a 3-point shot, even for a great 3-point shooter that's open, it's not a high percentage shot. So teams have left that open for a reason, but now you have situations 2-on-1 breaks where guys are flaring out to the 3-point line. I think it's now just become a 3-point shooting contest, and I think for a minute there that had some allure, but I think it's lost its luster now.
oh yeah, but the funny thing is, I read somewhere that the Raptors now have taken more threes than the 2015, 2016 Warriors.
Right, we're one of the best teams ever. They had the best record ever. Right?
Exactly. So here you are. You're telling me it's just a style of play. So again, it's not that the game is any better. It's like the new stupid analytical stats. What is it? TPS, true shooting percentage? That's the dumbest stats ever been created. So if you hit a three, it's more than a basket and an N1, when really a basket and an N1 is more valuable because you get the other team in foul trouble.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But it's just incredibly stupid, these stats that are out there that these people just rely on. But again, analytics is for the people who really don't understand anything while watching the game, but it gives them a number to hold on to in some argumentative case. Meanwhile, it's faulty math. It's the same thing in baseball, same old crap.
Right. And I think also not to I think we've talked about this also when we've had discussions as well, but I think you have now a situation where the league it's less physical than ever. I think fans kind of enjoyed some rough and tumble kind of basketball, guys being physical, block shots at the rim and everything, hard fouls. I think those were things that fans enjoyed and liked. And I got to say for myself,
Yeah.
a physical play, I think one of the things that pisses me off the most is now they review flagrant fouls at the monitor. I'm like, if you can't call it in the moment if it's a flagrant foul or not, it's not a flagrant foul. Why are you reviewing that? You call it in the moment, all right? If it's
If
dirty
you have to think about it, it's not.
yeah, and we enjoy that Best of Enemies, that Celtics Lakers documentary right there. The
Sure.
Kevin McHale foul on Kurt Rambis, it's not even a technical foul. That was just a common foul. He doesn't even get thrown out of the game, nothing. And I'm
Nope.
not saying that was right then. I think you had a point with the Pistons that were just assaulting the best player in the league. The NBA literally had its life in the hands right there. If Michael Jordan has a career-ending injury, you
Sure.
had the Knicks and Pacers. I know we make fun of that. That was kind of basketball that was unwatchable. But I
I
think
thought it was, yeah.
but I think you have to agree, tell me if I'm wrong, to have some of that in the league, I think is healthy, though, where a team can impose themselves physically. And I think that's why playoff basketball is actually better than regular season because teams kind of go back to that. The refs swallow the whistle a little more, and teams do get more physical. So you have some great defense as well in there.
Well, that's why the last couple of years the NBA has been savaged by playoff injuries because defense is allowed in the playoffs and the guys are not used to the level of intensity, and all of a sudden
Right,
guys are
right,
getting banged up.
right.
We're
And
losing
also, I
guys
think,
that are we're
yeah.
losing guys at a record pace.
Right. And I think also it's the non-contact injuries. Guys aren't used to playing that hard necessarily all year. And then they try going 100% truthfully in a high intensity moment. And guys, they're tearing stuff. And that's
We're
what
seeing guys tearing all kinds of stuff. I mean, now all of a sudden you're allowed to bump a cutter.
Right.
Guys don't know how to handle that. It's
Right.
crazy.
Right. Right. And, and the
But
refs, less technical fouls and everything like that. So I think, that.
you know what's really sad though is that the All-Star game thing, getting back to that for a sec, is I don't know. You just knew that the West and the East didn't like each other, but now I don't know if you feel that way. So like now it's like, why do I want to watch? Like I'm a diehard Magic Johnson fan. It's my guy. But I wanted to beat Bird, Jordan, and Isaiah's ass.
Right.
And I wanted to see I wanted to see Kareem get his, and I wanted to see Karl Malone do well, and John Stockton, and and I wanted to see like I wanted to see Moses Malone play for the Sixers or play for the Rockets when he was in the West, and like you cared about the product. Today it's just good God, it's hard to watch. It really is.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think also, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit, in future shows, that the gambling aspect, I think too, I don't know if that maybe has some influence as well. I think,
Oh yeah,
I think guys now they're just updating their DraftKings. They don't necessarily want to watch the game now, and I think also style of play and everything like that. I just something to think about. I
it's funny. It's funny you say that, but I've also now this is just the theory, but over the years of coaching, the better video game basketball's become as far as the game quality of the game, the worse players' knowledge has become. And two, you just watch talk radio. I think has ruined the sports knowledge of the fan, and also because I was there for the infancy of that, started in 1987. Nobody listens to more to radio than I do. So like again, it's hurt its infancy, and I also think the gambling has really put a big wreck on the infancy of just the knowledge of the fan itself. Because like you said, they all think they're picking a fantasy team. A fantasy team doesn't necessarily win you games. A fantasy team might win you statistics, but statistics don't always win you the games. So it's like the red zone channel is like the number one selling channel right now.
yeah, yeah, because
So
you're just getting the important moments. You're not necessarily watching down
yeah, so for me, everybody at
watching
school is
full
like, Dave, how could you not watch the red zone channel? I go, guys, I watch the Vikings. I'm watching the Vikings. I'm a purple people eater.
game.
I
Right,
don't need to watch the red zone channel.
right.
Now, if I'm in a knockout pool, that's my level of gambling. I'm in a knockout pool. Yeah, I'll flip over to it if the team I'm about to have for the week is going to get through. Yeah, but at the same time, like it's almost feel like we've like taken our emphasis off the game. And again, it's like I said to you before, it's about everything but the game itself. It's gotten kind of crazy, but the gambling, the talk radio, I think it's all a little bit of a factor because we become more distracted as a group. So
Yep,
when there's
absolutely.
more distractions, it waters down, the concentration level in the product itself.
Yeah. So I think that also with the evolution of technology, maybe now people have a shorter fuse now to sit down and watch an actual
Oh,
game from
definitely.
top to bottom. And if they're not liking the product, then you really aren't sitting down to watch. So I think it's all those factors as well. And I think also what you touched on too, you don't have what's the rivalry right now in the NBA? What are the player rivalries? You don't have a team, you don't have a coastal thing. You watch the different documentaries that like the Celtics and Lakers one really illustrates that. You didn't just have a Celtics, you had a coastal rivalry there too, East and
Yeah, the
West.
Sixers and the Lakers battled, in three finals and 4 years there too. So
Right.
there was a West Coast, East Coast thing as a whole.
Yeah, and then when they
Um,
got the Pistons, that too, the Bulls and the Lakers
yep.
duked it out. You had a lot of that going on. I think you just,
It's
you're hurt from that.
personalities. It's strong personalities. I also think that, well, it's funny. You saw what the Major League Baseball did. The length of the game was so bad that they did two really revolutionary moves and sped up the game. I watch baseball every night in the springtime. My Oakland A's are now no longer in Oakland, but I still watch those games, and I got to get up at 5 to teach. But I'll be up till 1 in the morning watching the A's because it's my team.
Right,
So the thing is, but the games took a whole half hour off the pace this year,
right,
and I have to say, it was wonderful.
right.
So now, do I like the non-throw over rules for stealing bases? I mean, Ricky Henderson's rolling over in his grave. But if you could have only thrown over twice when Ricky was playing, he might have had 200 stolen bases in a year. But at the same time, I think it sped up the game. So I'm appreciative of that.
I think also I heard Charles Barkley. He had, I think, a good kind of maybe suggestion for the NBA. He talked about how the year that you had the lockout year and you had the shortened season. It was the 2011, 2012 year, the year I
Yeah,
think, or 2012, 2013, the year that the Heat won their first championship with LeBron.
sure.
That's the highest the ratings have been up until this point since then. And
Sure.
he had a suggestion, why don't you start the NBA on Christmas? And then because there's nothing going on in July and August, so then you would have those months, you would rule the roost there. And why are you
Right.
competing with college football and NFL football for 2 months? I thought that was a good suggestion, I think, too. And again,
And
the
yeah,
NBA, that's an excuse for why the ratings are down in the league. But I thought maybe the league, maybe you want to try that instead.
I've been saying for about 5 years now, my playoff podcast all the time. I always say, look, Let's have 72 game seasons, no back-to-backs, but then there's no load management either. So now it's like the NFL or the Major League Baseball. When you're out, you have to go on a DL. So like when you got to go on a 10 DL, or a 15-day DL, or a 60-day DL. None of this crap where he's taking a night off. All right, so you got to go on a DL. So like 72 games, no back-to-backs. But then you got to go out on a 5-day DL, a 10-day DL, whatever you got to do. That's what you do. Have a 5-day, a 10-day, a 20-day, a 40-day, whatever you got to do. Because this crap where we're doing load management, and some fan is LeBron's rolling into the garden, and some kid paid $2,000 for a seat and is not going to see LeBron on load management. Sorry, not doing it.
And I'm biased. It's my, you and my our show, but there's some suggestions that I think all of ours I think are valid, I think, and good. There are some suggestions that I've heard that are absolutely patently absurd. I think Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright, they had one where they wanted to
Look at us, Nick wrong and Colin actually a coward. Yeah,
they had one suggestion where it was take away the corner three. I'm like, what
yeah.
the hell are you talking
What are we
about?
playing in Adelphi's gym in the 50s where the overhang hit the court?
I'm like, I'm like, but some of these suggestions, I'm like, you're going to turn the league into looking like a circus. I mean, like, truthfully,
It's a freak show.
you're already hovering with that right now with the colored courts and the way the All-Star game is going to be this year. And then there was one where you have dunks be 3 points. I mean, like, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, this is just totally insane. I'm like, if you honestly did that, I'm like, as a fan, I don't think I'd even watch during playoff
Yeah,
time.
me neither. I think I'd have to turn it off.
I think I would protest and be like, this is absolutely insane. I'm not going for that.
But you know what's hysterical though? This all comes back to money. Some of the best basketball ever is the summer league basketball. They all have to run the same sets. You watch the NBA summer league. Those guys are hungry as hell, and that's the difference. So why are you hungry when I'm giving you 40 million to suck?
Right.
Like I knew we were done when like Timmy Hardaway got like fucking, excuse my French, $40 million. Like Timmy's a nice player, but he wasn't even as good as his dad. So he got like 40 million, I think, for like a 2-year deal. I was like, Timmy Hardaway, $20 million? Like for what? To be a below average shooting guard?
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah,
20
guys.
million. Sorry, it means something in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But
The contracts, I think, also have gotten ridiculous too. So like you said, there's just less hunger, I think, and intensity in the game. But
well, how are you going to be hungry when I handed you a bag of money?
yeah,
Like Jimmy Butler, someone finally caught on to his crap where he plays about 50 games every year, and they go, playoff Jimmy. Playoff Jimmy's had some really horrible playoff games too. Playoff Jimmy never hits a three either, but playoff Jimmy's also missed 30 games a year. So Pat Riley finally wised up to that. He said, "Oh yeah, playoff Jimmy, you need to play all year round, so we're not like the 5 seed." What a shock, playoff
we're gonna
Jimmy.
I'm gonna read you, Uncle Dave, the new All-Star game format. All right, verbatim. So
Go ahead.
it's all right. So this is the new format. It's a mini tournament with 4 teams, 3 games in the All-Star game. Three, not one. You have
Excellent.
24 NBA All-Star selections divided evenly into three 8-player teams. Fourth team is Castrol Rising Stars champion. Honorary team general managers, TNT analysts Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith, and Candace Parker. Barkley, O'Neal, and Smith draft their teams from a pool of 24 NBA All-Star selections. Parker is GM of Castrol Rising Stars champion. 2 teams in one semifinal game, and remaining 2 teams beat in other semifinal game. Winning teams from game 1 and 2 advance to face each other in championship game. Winner of each game is first team to reach or surpass 40 points. So you don't have a time limit. You're just going to a certain score. You get into 40 points.
3-on-3 or 4 or 5-on-5 or
Yeah, it's 12. I'm assuming it's 5-on-5 here. I mean, they don't
5-on-5.
say
All
if
right.
it's, yeah, it's just, but just reading that just, gives you a headache and makes you shake your head. So I think that's just a
At least
recipe
they're
for
creative.
disaster.
I have to give them an A+ for creativity.
Jesus. I mean, it's one thing if you had that like separate of the All-Star game or you had 3-on-3 or a 1-on-1 contest, but to have that, I think, as the main highlight attraction, I think is absolutely insane, I think, and kind of a disgrace, quite frankly.
Yeah,
So,
I give them an A+ for creativity. I mean, I don't think I'm tuning in for that because it's the middle of college basketball season.
right,
But Jesus Lord, yeah, I give them an A+ for creativity.
right. All
But I'm
right,
not
we're
watching.
gonna get into our last topic here in college basketball here. What teams that are not in the top 25 have caught your eye? Have there any teams that, like I said, are not in that illustrious top 25 that you really have stuck out to you so
Yes,
far?
sir.
Some unsung
Now
teams.
listen, this is like, um, like geek stuff because I love college basketball. So
At every level. I think it's important. I got to tell the listener here. My uncle, he watches any level of basketball, all three levels. All right, Ivy League basketball. It doesn't matter if it's UTEP and Harvard.
D3hoops.com, I'm on all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's Harvard or Iona from the Sunday. He's going to watch that game. So.
Well, one that I have to say is I'm excited about the America East this year because even though Stony Brook's not in it anymore, so I don't have to root for them. I've seen some teams starting to make their way back. Albany, after Coach Brown left, is now starting to make a little resurgence here. UMass Lowell is 11-4. They haven't started the league yet, but they seem to be doing some good things. Excuse me. So I'm looking at that league. The American Athletic Conference, Memphis is a very good team, very underrated. They are top 25, so I won't say them.
They had a
Um, uh,
exceptional game against Ole Miss. This kid, Colby
Yep.
Rogers, 6 of 9 from three. That was an exciting game, really up and down game. It was 87-70 in favor of Memphis there. That was an exceptional game. I think it's also good to see, Uncle Dave, I think, too, a former player, Penny Hardaway, have
Oh,
the
God, yeah, love it.
career. He was a fun player to watch. So I think it's alma mater too. So I think that's good for college basketball to see him doing well there. So I really like watching Memphis play. So I think that's one of my teams that's in the top 25 that I really enjoy watching.
Yeah, Wichita State, I always have a keen interest in because of Coach Marshall. And,
Right.
Wichita State Shockers is 10-3 again. It's good to see that. But conference play just kicking off in some of the big leagues here. The Atlantic 10, I'm always interested in St. Bonaventure Bonnies. They're 12-1 is the best start they've had in many years. My brother, your uncle went there. St. Bonaventure's had a long. Woj is now the basketball GM there. The Dayton Flyers, Anthony Grant, the coach down there. I'm always interested to watch him. Dayton is good again. VCU is good again, 10-3 as well. Fordham having a decent start. So I'm always interested in watching these teams. Obviously, the ACC is my favorite. So we got SMU. It's going to be interesting to see what they're doing. Of course, I'm a Blue Devil fan. They play tomorrow. There's 4 games in the ACC tomorrow. Clemson looks pretty good out of the gate. I think Pittsburgh is an underrated team. I think you got to watch. I think Capel fits well in this era of just reloading every year and being good. I think Jeff Capel could be excellent in this modern era of coaching. I think the Heels were overrated. I said this at the beginning of the year. You just don't take 3 or 4 guys that have been there for 8 million games, plug them out and go, yeah, they're top 5. I told you. You're not replacing Baycott and just going, yeah, we'll be top 5. Carolina's not that good. Maybe they'll fix it by the end of the year. And if not,
We talked about on Christmas Eve, Hubert Davis.
Yep.
I mean, if he really doesn't do some damage this year, if he doesn't win the ACC or make a deep tournament run, I think he's out of there. So,
well, I think
7-5 at Carolina is not acceptable at any given
no,
point. So.
I think that's for our fans. It's the conversation we have all the time. As a person who coached college for years, there are some places where 7-5 is okay.
Right.
Carolina is not one of them. Or Kentucky or Duke anymore.
Right.
Indiana fans are the same way. They're crazy.
Right.
So fans get crazy depending on recent success. I would say that he wouldn't be out this year, but I would say that the birds would start chirping. And
Absolutely. I think if it got ugly, I think that you could be out. But you're right. I think if he's serviceable, he might get another year because he is, again, Hubert Davis. He played at UNC. He was a good player there, so he might get a little pull. But yeah, I agree. It's interesting. We'll talk about Carolina more as the year continues.
I'm looking forward to the Cavs are on tomorrow at noon. That's my son's school where he works. I'm looking forward to that. Their own one. We got to find a way to beat NC State. Although NC State's got, I think, 5 seniors in the starting lineup. It's disappointing in Georgia Tech start. A little disappointing now. Florida State Seminoles, our coach is in a little bit of trouble there. We got players claiming they didn't get their payments, which is going to open up a whole other can of worms.
On show number 2, we're going to discuss Hamilton there and not playing players NIL money because I think you're going to see those are going to be coming up quite frequently. I think in the future here, you're going to see a lot more of that.
I want to see if Iowa State is real. They're top 3, so I won't mention them. I think the Jayhawks are good, but they're a little boring. But I think Houston and Baylor are very tough because they always defend. Cincinnati Bearcats a little bit better than we talked about. Obviously the Big 12 is a little bit different now. It's not the Big 12. It's like the Big 50. The Big East Conference, Georgetown off to an 11-2 start. We'll see if coaches could get that thing turned around. Marquette is real. St. John's is real. UConn obviously was a little overrated early. I told you they weren't a top 5 team yet. You don't replace 4 starters and just go top 5. It takes time to gel. We won't know who the really good teams are till the end of January, but we can have some guesses, if you will. Seton Hall's off to a tough start. Lost a tough game the other day. The Big Sky Conference, they got nothing out of there right now. The Big South, my old Winthrop Eagles, 10-5, off to a decent start. So I haven't really been following that conference as much yet. The Maryland Terrapins are 11-2. I'm keep waiting for big things out of Maryland Terrapins. Coach does a great job down there. He'll coach from Seton Hall. He's done a fantastic job. My guys at Rutgers, good win tonight over Columbia, who's off to an 11-1 start. Best start for Columbia in ages. So Rutgers got obviously the two great Frosh in the backcourt. Penn State's off to a fantastic start, 11-2. The Wolverines, I think, are 2-0 in the league, but they're gonna have to rebuild. Looks like Michigan State is legit again, so that will be interesting as well. Sparty is off to an 11-2 start. Tom Izzo is trying to hold on to this, one of the few old guys that can tolerate this modern day of coaching. See if Iowa can respond. The Big West, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to at this moment yet. The Coastal League, I have not paid attention to at this moment yet, although the Camels are not bad. I've watched Campbell 3 times this year. Campbell has
I watched
some
them.
European.
I watched them yesterday. They played North Carolina, and
Yep, and
they
they're not
hung with them.
afraid.
Yeah, they hung with them for a little bit at the first half. Carolina just opened up on the second half on them.
Yep, they're not afraid. They can shoot the three. They play and not a convenient offense to guard. Everybody can shoot it. Going to be interesting. My Seawolves are off to a tough start. Could be a tough year for my Wolves. Hofstra Pride, I haven't gotten to see them more than once. The Conference USA, I haven't really gotten behind that yet. Same with their eyes, but like I said, in the Ivy, Columbia 11-2. Princeton, very good team. They gave Rutgers a run for their money, obviously. The Brown, I think that in the Ivy League, the 4 teams that are going to make that tournament are going to be Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and probably Harvard or Penn. So I'm thinking that those final 4 teams in there will have a great time and looking forward to the Ivy League tournament this year. It's one of my favorite leagues. The team I'm really watching closely has done a great job. They're 5-8. I've watched them play 10 times this year, and I watched every game last year. It's the Merrimack Warriors because coach plays a different zone. It's really a 1-1. It's really like a 1-1-3 zone. And it's something that we've implemented in high school. It's definitely a different look. And Merrimack has done a good job, and I believe in that zone, trying to get my players to be better at it. Quinnipiac is good. Marist is good. So it's a fun league to follow. I'd like to see Canisius get that thing straightened around up there. I always have an interest in from a local standpoint. We're not there yet. The Mid-America, I'm not up to. The Mid-East, I'm not up yet. Missouri Valley, one of the most underrated conferences in the country. Haven't really paid too much attention. I did see Drake once at 12-0. They're off to a very good start. The Mountain West is always a tough league. You got UNLV in there. You got the Aggies. You got Boise State, who's got a big football game tomorrow night. Northeast Conference is always personal because there's so many local teams. LIU, I'd like to see them get in there, but we're having a league game yet. The Wagner Seahawks are in there, obviously. I'd like to see them do well from Staten Island. Patriot League, one of my favorite leagues. Holy Cross off to an 8-5 start. They're pretty good. Virginia, very solid team. Colgate does a great job every year. Coach Langley. They're 3-10 right now out of conference, but when it comes down to the league time, they're gonna be knocking on the door. The strongest Southeast Conference this year since the mid-90s. It's not even close. The mid-90s, you had Kentucky being rebuilt. You had Georgia, you had Alabama. This Southeast Conference is as good as it gets. They've handled the portal, I think, better than the ACC, and that's why they've had so much more success. I think the academic differences in the conferences are also a problem. But Tennessee is legit. Kentucky's legit. Alabama's legit. Auburn's legit. Florida's three-headed backcourt is amazing. That's going to really be a problem if you watch that. Texas is legit.
They played. I think it was Stetson. They really just took them to task there.
Well, the one guard, Clayton, is the kid that was at Iona with Coach Pitino, and then Coach Pitino went to St. John's. He said, "I'm going to go to Gainesville." And I don't blame him for going to Gainesville as compared to, Jamaica, New York. I don't blame him. It's a little bit nicer in Gainesville.
Yeah,
but Gainesville's a little bit more beautiful.
Right.
The Sun Belt Conference, I haven't really been up to yet. James Madison, I followed a little bit, but nothing going on there yet. 7-6, 0-1 in the league. So those are my guys. I'm just following behind the 8 ball, so to speak. But I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. A lot of the leagues really tip off, and it's a fun time of year. And unfortunately, as a high school coach, you know what that league stress is. We're struggling right now in the league ourselves. It's hard to get off to a bad start in the league. It kind of deflates your season. But it's just something that you understand the guys that get off to an 0-2 or an 0-3 start in league. Sometimes people start chirping extra these years because there is so much at stake with the NIL and all the money that's being put into these college teams. So when all that money is being pumped into it, the pressure just amps up. And so if you're a person who's, trying to make your kids go to class as a college coach. You're trying to make them graduate, trying to make them do the right things off the court. It seems like society's just told you to forget about it. Just win me some games.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that was a tedious and difficult job for coaches to do before the NIL stuff. Now with it, it's like, forget it now. I mean, it's
Oh,
like,
it's a full time. It's like three full-time jobs
it
now.
was,
I feel
yeah,
for these guys.
no, no, definitely.
Plus, you all making
Certainly,
crazy money. And the assistant coaches at the top level are making like 350,000 a year. So, whereas back in the day they were making 80. So I don't feel too bad.
yeah. So I'll talk about some of the games that I watched recently that were great. We talked about it. The Memphis Ole Miss game was an
Yep.
exceptionally exciting game. Ole Miss is
Chris
a
Beard, one of the best coaches in the country.
Yeah, top 25 team, and Memphis just had an incredible performance, 87 points at home and defeated Ole Miss 87 to 70. The Georgia and South Carolina State game was really interesting. Georgia was
Yeah.
down 17 at halftime at home
Yep.
and came back to win that game. So that was also another fun game to watch. And a game I watched closely also Sunday was Indiana State versus Ohio State. This
Wow.
Aj Teal, 18 points a game, 58% shooting,
The
and
Sycamores. Larry
yeah,
Bird.
and he's shooting 39% from three, so he's an exceptionally talented player. And then Bruce Thornton for Ohio State's having a great season as well. He's averaging 16 and shooting 54% from three and 47% behind the arc. So
They got a good coach there too. He's tight. Holman gets
yeah,
it done.
yeah, he's a big time scorer. So Ohio State, that was a great game to watch. And then I also watched last night Purdue versus UTEP, and that was a good game. And Purdue, again, they were had a great year last year. They're in the top 25 again. So I think they'll be a tournament team as well when it gets down to the end of the season here. But as a college coach, Uncle Dave, former college coach, you're at the midway point now. We talked about it also Christmas Eve. You have to kind of get your second wind here post Christmas and New Year's. You kind of have mental and physical fatigue here. So as a coach, what are you trying to do with your staff and your players? What are some of the things that you're talking about here?
Well, it's funny. We have 12 games in 30 days starting on Monday, which in high school is unheard of. So today and tomorrow is their last 2 days. They'll have back to back till we're done with the season. They'll have off back to back. Because we have one stretch where we have 9 games in 5 days, 5 games in 9 days. So it's a little bit taxing. So your practices have to be a little smarter to the point, a little more film, a little less legwork. Uh, Making practice a little more creative, especially if you're struggling like we are right now. So you have to make more contest like situations where guys go after each other because you have to bring the best out in them because you are struggling on the win loss side, and we are doing that. So those are things that you have to do. In college, it was harder because the kids are away from home, and so that's a little bit much. By the way, shout out to two former players in college here. Mike McSloy's team is 8-2 with the Drew Rangers over there in D3 land. Mike doing a great job, former point guard on the Long Island Championship team there. And Rob Ismay is his ladies at Dartmouth. 3 of his recruits have won Rookie of the Week. I think a total of 5 times already for the Ivy. So things are looking up for the girls for Dartmouth. So shout out to Rob Ismay. He's doing a great job there. So it's always good to see the former guys in
Sure.
basketball themselves. But yeah, so you have to keep it fresh. Rosie. Excuse me. Rosie.
Got a dog.
I'm sorry, guys. Rosie's in the podcast. But so you have to keep it fresh with the workouts and stuff like that. You have to come up with new things. And I also think it's a good time of year to always add something because a lot of people don't collect as much new film maybe as they should. Whereas they think they're at the halfway point, they think all the film's out there. So I always like to save maybe a thing or two that you don't have on film anywhere else that you spring in January. Obviously, if I thought it would help us win a game or two, and when you struggled, I would have pulled it out already. But still, it's something that gives the team a fresh look. It's something I always like to have something we haven't put on the film, so that's important. But again, it's just keeping the practices fresh and competitive.
No, I think you're at the point now where we're at the halfway mark. I think if you're going to have like a second crack at having a different identity, now is the time where you're going to maybe try to implement something and put another wrinkle, I think. And I think it depends on your win-loss percentage because I think even if you're in a good situation right now, this is like we said, this is where you really separate the men from the boys here. Like I said, post Christmas and New Year's, you really have in the beginning of the season, you have everyone really dialed in and focused. It's a fresh season, it's the new year. There's a lot of excitement to that. Here, you really, if you're really into it and dialed in, you're a true grinder. So I think it's
True.
keeps guys mentally engaged and physically healthy. I think also that's a big
Well,
part.
yeah, I think that goes to each individual team. My team this year is definitely lovers of basketball. It's
Right.
just trying to get them to focus on
It
the
makes
most
it
important parts of basketball.
obviously that's the ideal situation, regardless if you're winning or loss situation. If you have guys that are gym rats that are still engaged, you're in a
Yeah,
fairly decent situation.
sure. It's just really it's I guess there are some years where that's not the case,
Right.
and that's really hard. But you can
Yeah,
always
then it
tell
could be
by
tough.
player. You can
Yep.
tell by player attendance at practice. That's the key.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. No, definitely. All right. So I thought this would be a good point to end, Uncle Dave, on our first,
Sure. I'm looking forward. I've been saying, how long have I been saying we should be doing this?
I know, I know. Well, here's the thing, folks. Anyone who watches this, like I said, this is what me and my uncle do when we get together for family occasions. This is what we're doing. So we're like, he's been putting the bug in my ear, and I've been agreeing with him. Why don't we just make a show of this and see where it goes? So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, and I only got like 20 years left in my life, so we got to hurry up.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? We want to have a portfolio for everybody to look at, a catalog to show everybody the knowledge that this man has here. So I think that would be a good thing.
Plus,
I
we can
think
get some good guests, man. We can get some good guests. We got some
Yeah,
fun
no,
guests.
definitely. We could implement that as well for sure. And I think the way we'll work this is, we might, with the college season, really getting into it now, we might focus on a game or two and we'll recap those games and we'll break them down and put some analysis on that.
Yep. The best part is just starting to take notes for every game I watch is going to be, I'm going to have to limit my notes.
Yeah. Yep. So
I could be
whatever,
here for days.
whatever you want to bring to the table. I know X's and O's wise, and I know, we can project and we can go forever. I know, how me and you can get with this. So it
Well,
won't
shit,
be,
none of my X's and O's can be working. I mean, I haven't won a league game this year yet, so obviously my X's and O's.
but I know we could,
So,
we could talk
but
about it forever.
you gotta have basketball humor.
Oh,
Gotta
absolutely.
have some basketball humor.
No, well, there won't be lack of that here.
But yeah, we could have some great guests.
No,
We'll
definitely.
have some great guests, and we could have some fun. Looking forward to the next one.
No, for sure. I think that, there's no reason why we can't do this at least once or twice a week with the way the
Definitely,
college scene is right now. There's games on every night. So, I mean, I think what we'll do
definitely.
is we'll focus on maybe two or three and we'll break it down and we could have, something
I'm
in
in.
between an hour and two, I think. So,
Yeah,
a show once or twice a week. I think there's no reason for that. And then also, like I said, anyone listening will, anything that's a human or a general interest story in the NBA. And as we get closer to playoff basketball, we'll watch that as well. And obviously March Madness. I think when we get into the tournament, Uncle Dave, I think every night I think we'll be on here damn near. I
best
think.
day of the year.
Yeah, yeah,
Best. The first Friday of the tournament is the best day of the year.
right. And that secret will stay between you and me. Why?
Yes, yes, yes.
We
I
won't get
might be,
into why
I
you
might
love.
be sick that day.
Right, right. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. He's a teacher, and there's an occasional virus that seems to be going around during tournament time.
First Friday of March virus always happens.
Right. And if you see him at the Seaport Deli, it's not him. It's just a lookalike. All right.
Oh yes, yes, the Seaport. Great memories. Great memories.
So and then, when you coached at Stony Brook, was that a place of a lunch
Yeah,
break or after practice?
now I'm dating myself. So we used to go to lunch there every day. Now listen, don't get offended.
We're not.
The deli was about 1/5 the size it was now because the rest of the building had like 3 other stores in it. And there was only 5 sandwiches on the sandwich board. So when you walk in the deli now,
Was it called Seaport back then, or was it
yes, it
different?
was.
Okay.
Yes, it
Okay.
was. Same owner though. When you walk in the deli now, if you look at the board to your left when you walk in, and then you take that board to your left all the way down to the right, those first 5 sandwiches that are on your right, those are the first 5 sandwiches they had. That's why I fell in love with the new sensation. That's my sandwich.
Right. All right. Well,
So it's yeah, it used to be very skinny. Then they bought out I think it was a hardware store. They bought out a salon, and they're just a legend. If we went there every day, but the sandwiches back then you got iced tea and a sandwich for $5.
right.
1992. That's a long time ago, dude.
Right.
So
Yeah.
every day, like JW, the Silver Fox, God rest his soul, Bernard Talman and myself, we go over there for practice, and then during camp time, we go over there, and oh my God, your cousin was there. He brought your cousin Carl there when he was a little boy. We brought him there when he's at the camp.
Right.
Yeah, we had a lot of
Yeah,
fun
no, I
there.
remember being very young. You brought me to Stony Brook practices. I remember that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
we
No, you got to go, man. It's the
our
best.
basketball history goes, very far back, and all the times, like when I was a very young player, my uncle working me out and everything at Maple Park and Rich's,
Maple Avenue. Maple
very
Avenue's got nice courts.
very fine memories. 6 in the morning, those workouts we did some of those, so that was 6 in the
Slave
morning.
drive.
Yeah, yeah. The fog and everything and the dew on the grass.
Oh, it's the best.
For sure. All right, folks. Well, this was the first Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter show. We are going to be, like I said, the way me and my uncle can communicate and talk hoop. I think at least once or twice a week at minimum. I think, and maybe more. Certainly around
Let's go.
NBA playoff time and March Madness time. Like I said, I think it'll be every night practically. So,
No
we'll be
doubt.
in touch, and that's how we're going to leave it. All right. So, everyone, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.